Hey guys, Brian Beeler alongside Kevin O'Brien in the Storage Review Lab as we're looking at another NAS review today. This is a little baby NAS, the QNAP TS-251D.
Yeah, it's a 2-bay with expansion options.
2-bay with expansion options is kind of a little strange because this is in their home line, and to even have the PCIe slot for a home NAS is a little bit different than usual.
Well, I'd say it's more prosumer. I mean, it hits some points that you'd find in a home environment, but it captures a little bit of the expansion that a prosumer might want.
And we'll talk about that, and I guess this just goes to prove that having 8.6 million options in the QNAP portfolio.
There are quite a few, and I try not to keep that in mind. Too many in mind, because
Well, we talked about that on the podcast last week. I had some of the QNAP guys on, and we talked about NASs and how quite literally every 6 days we get a press release from QNAP with a new feature, new software package, new NAS, and again we got one today. So we continue to see updates in the portfolio.
it's never boring with a QNAP portfolio.
No, not boring. So let's take a look at this guy specifically. This is their white, and what color is that?
Looks
Metallic
like
teal?
maybe a bluish gold.
Bluish green, blue, gold? A patinaed blue gold.
Yes.
Okay, so 2-bay white chassis. That door slides off. It's held on with a magnet, which is kind of nice. You can see the locking switch on the side. You've got a drive in there now. I didn't look at this one specifically. Please tell me these are toolless drive trays.
It's toolless for a 3.5-inch drive. It's not toolless for the SSD that I put inside of it just now.
Oh, ooh, saucy.
Yes, it's just a 40 gig though, nothing too fancy.
So toolless trays though makes it easy, and because this is targeted to a home or very light business use, making it simple to deploy is nice. On the back side, what do we have going on there?
There's some USB 3 ports. There's a single 1 gig port, power port, and for those that notice the expansion, it has the PCIe slot, but there's nothing in it right now.
All right, well, let's take a look at the specs here in our review. What else do we have going on from a feature set?
So it is a dual-core 2 gigahertz Celeron, and because it's QNAP, they offer it in 2 models, but it's just a variation of how much RAM is inside. So they have a 2 gig and a 4 gig option, and then for total memory, you can go up to 8 gigabytes if you want to expand that. On the drive slot-wise, it's 2 3.5-inch bays. M.2 drives are supported, but it's with an adapter card. So
Right, so we've seen some start to load in the 2.5 the M.2 NVMe bays native. This one can do that, but with the card.
Yeah, so it's a little bit like Synology's offering, where you need to add an expansion card for that. And there are some different options. They have some that offer the M.2 port, M.2 slots, some with M.2 slots and a 10 gig port, but it's really a mishmash of what you might want to add into it.
Well, if you want to add SSDs to something like this, it's doable, but it only has 1 gig on the backside, right? So you're kind of...
Yeah, I mean, there is some cause where if you have onboard apps, you get higher I/O with those M.2 bays, but it really, I think most people buying this aren't going to be loading it with Flash, but who knows? I mean, it just gives you that option if you want to go that route.
So the other thing you can do with the PCIe slot is expand your expansion opportunities, right? So they've got all sorts of chassis and different things you can add to this. There's even a rack mount chassis that you can support.
Yeah, some have like
this.
USB 3 expansion. I'm not sure how many are going to do that, but it's an option.
Yes, not that you would, but you could. And as Kevin says, ours is the 4 gigabyte RAM model. It does have a 2 gig version. So they're trying to hit a couple different price points there in their infinite portfolio of choices.
Yeah.
So when we look at performance, let's hit some of the highlights here. I think we just did a little bit of testing with
we were doing
the 14 terabyte RAIDs.
Yeah, so we were doing RAID 1 across 2 hard drives, which gave us a little bit over 1,000 IOPS read in our 4K random read workload. That's over iSCSI. CIFS less than that, but CIFS is pretty normally slow for 4K random write activity. If we go on to our 8K sequential, we saw about just shy of about 15,000 IOPS across the board for CIFS and iSCSI for sequential 8K IOPS.
It seems not so terrible for 2 hard drives.
Yeah, and then when we look at the 128K, we can see 2 hard drives can easily saturate the single 1 gig port on the back.
Well, I would think, too, that this will end up in a lot of file share scenarios, copying over photos, things like that, Office PDFs, PowerPoints, things of that nature.
Yeah, nothing too crazy.
Yeah, so in terms of performance with the hard drives inside, it does what 2 hard drives are going to do. One of the other things that's really interesting, though, is we think about the NAS, it's the ecosystem, right? It's the operating system.
Yeah.
And in this case, why don't we take a look at that?
So they offer a ton of cool features.
Can you make the robot wave first?
Yes.
Look at that.
Look at that. Sufficient memory.
Is that the name of the robot, or is it just telling us we have sufficient memory in the system?
I think if you scratch its belly, it just says sufficient memory.
Okay, so that's our robot buddy. But it comes with all the first 2 rows of apps come pre-installed. We added the bottom ones because QNAP in their regular release schedule has released the Hyper Data Protector, which is a virtualization backup software, and hybrid mount, which gives you cloud volume access. And I was kind of surprised that they were available to a system this far down on the QNAP ladder.
Yeah, if you pop into App Center, I mean, you have a lot of options. They have their QTS Essentials, and then, I mean, you can drill in through all the other third-party offerings, which, I mean, the sky's the limit, honestly, because when you add in the container support, really any Docker container you can add into this.
Right.
But getting back to the point of Hypermount and the Hyper Data Protector, these guys just load up as internal apps. And, I mean, you're able to easily drill in through. I mean, this one, you might not use it as the frontline offering, but, I mean, if you're a small business and you're looking at, well, what if someone hacks my main platform? How do I protect myself from that? You could have this little guy running off in the background. It doesn't need to be the slowest thing. It just needs to have the data on it. It's a pretty cost-effective offering, that solution. And then when you load into, drop out of this, we go back into the Hyper Data Protector. This guy loads up as a separate web interface. It's a pretty snappy interface. It might not be the fastest backup solution, but
if you've got a small office, I mean, we talk to small professional accounting firms, lawyers, those types of things, dental office, that might have just a couple VMs, and to be able to run the protection scheme, if it's VMware or Hyper-V within your NAS, whether it's this one or anything from QNAP, that's pretty cool. And this is free forever. We talked about that also on the podcast last week. So they may make some additional enhancements and do like a pro version or something like that with Hyper Data Protector. But everything you see here out of the gate is good to go and will be good to go. So I think it does bring back the point of tiny little NAS, 2-bay guy in the semi-home pro category, right? A little bit more than a home user, just to capture your family photos and maybe videos, that sort of thing. So a little bit more than that, but still highly capable in terms of all the additional apps, the expansion, the additional capabilities, plus the patina, rose gold,
blue gold
patina.
Yeah.
It's a pretty strong little unit.
Yeah, I like it.
All right.
It has magnets too.
Yeah, I said that. It's got magnets to hold the door.
It's fantastic.
It's fantastic.
I like the magnets.
All right. So you find pleasure in the small stuff. For me, it's toolless drive trays. For Kevin, it's a door with a magnet on it. That said, it's a great little unit, TS-251D. It's worth checking out if you want a little NAS for home, for a small office, or even as a secondary NAS offsite in a small business. Anyway, thanks for tuning in.